Hey guys, I'd like to welcome you back to my YouTube channel. As I said before, this channel is going to be about learning about self-healing. Now, the first thing that I have to say about self-healing is that it's an intentional act to make sure that you learned your lessons and that you're able to move forward as a whole person, I would say. And a big part of self healing is setting yourself free from past situations. And you do that by telling your story, by being able to release that and get that out. It just helps you, it sets you free from past emotions, from past experiences, past people, past behaviors, and it holds you accountable for your actions in the future. And so, one thing that I really want to comment on is if anybody watched the show Queen Sugar. Now, if you watch the show Queen Sugar, the one of the main characters named Nova, she decided to write a book. And in this book, she decided to tell her own story, but she also decided to tell her family members' stories, their own individual stories. And she did that without their permission. And even though she had good intentions, like she felt like, well, in doing this, my family is going to be healed, our generational curses are going to be broken, everybody's going to be free from these situations that really put them in a negative space. And of course, it backfired on her and it had her upset. It had everyone upset with her. And yeah. So even though in telling your story, other people will be a part of it, other people are a part of your own experiences, but you don't have to tell someone's own individual story. And you don't have to share those personal things about them for the sake of thinking that you're setting them free from something that they weren't ready to be set free from. It's not your responsibility to tell their story. It's not your responsibility to set them free. But it is your responsibility to set yourself free. So the things that burden you according to your own story, it's important to release those. It's important to let those out in some kind of way. And I know in the black community, there is this stigma of telling your business. You know, what happens in this house stays in this house. Nobody needs to know what's going on. A lot of people are against going to therapy, which I am a big advocate for therapy because, one, I go through therapy myself. It's been a year since I actually first sent in my application to start seeing a therapist. And I'm a therapist myself, a therapist with a therapist. But that's an episode for another day. But if you want to self-heal, you have to release those things from your own personal body. And a lot of people tend to internalize certain situations, which that was a big thing for me because growing up in my household, it wasn't necessarily okay to cry or express yourself or to express any emotions other than gratefulness, thankfulness, happiness, joy. And so I internalized a lot of things that happened in my life. And because of that, I carried a lot of trauma into adulthood. So when I finally got to a place where I was fed up with feeling down, being depressed, situations not working out, failed relationships, bad experiences, being in the hole, I decided that I needed to do something about it. And I decided that therapy was the best option for me. Now, prior to me signing up to go to therapy, I actually worked on myself a lot. I did a lot of self-healing spiritually, especially through my beliefs and being a Christian and going to church and listening to gospel music, listening to motivational speakers and being around positive people and nurturing those things around me. That was a part of my self-healing as well. But therapy was like the biggest part of my self-healing because I was able to address the childhood traumas that I went through that I really, really needed healing from. And so I say all of that to say this. I will be sharing my own story and the things that I've been through in the past. And there are other characters in my story, and they may not necessarily play a positive role in what has happened in the past, but they have played a big role in my life lessons and actually trying to figure out if I've actually learned those lessons, because I think this time around and experiencing some of the things that I've went through recently, I don't necessarily think that I've put my finger on what the lesson is in it and how to move forward. But y'all are going to be on this journey with me. So, yeah, y'all will be figuring things out with me, thankfully. And so I want to go back to past time when I decided to move to Mississippi. I was 17 years old, and a few of my friends that I was in high school with decided that they were going to go to Jackson State University for college. I was like, well, I may as well follow my friends. These are the people that I've known for, honestly, since elementary school. And so I followed my friends to Mississippi and decided to attend Jackson State University. So in me making that decision, there are a lot of things behind it. The funny thing is that my grandmother that raised me, she's actually from Mississippi, so I've always been familiar with Mississippi. All of my summers growing up were spent in the country in Mississippi, and so it's always been a familiar place to me. But even now, I don't know much of my family here, but I do have a lot of family here. And so at 17 years old, I decided I'm going to Jackson State. I'm going as far away from home as possible. That's what I need to do with my life. And I remember being in the car with my grandmother. It was close to my high school graduation. And she was like, "Are you sure you want to go to Mississippi?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Well, that's really far from," her response was, "Well, that's really far from home." And I was like, "Well, it's not like anybody wants me here anyway." And she was just like, "Well, why would you say something like that?" And I was just really adamant about feeling like nobody wanted me. I didn't feel close to my family, even though my family was full of traditions. We went to each other's houses for the holidays. My family was actually a pretty close-knit family, but I never felt like I belonged or like I was a part. And so that was the conversation that me and my grandma had about me going away to college was, well, I'm leaving because nobody wants me here, and I feel like I'll be better off in Mississippi. And so I didn't necessarily know how much those words would impact me further on down the line until 2 days after my high school graduation, my grandmother actually died. And so it was like every decision that I made leading up to that day was solid. Like it was a permanent decision. It's like, okay, the woman that raised you is no longer alive. You no longer have your support system. You no longer have a home. So now you have to move to Mississippi, and that's going to be your new home. And I really didn't understand like how much that senior year in high school was really going to impact my life moving forward. And so here I am, the only family member that's left in the house that I grew up in, never treated me good, never treated me fairly, was abusive to me. And so it was like, now here you are, 17 years old, trying to figure out how you're going to get to Mississippi, how you're going to get the stuff that you need to go to college, how you're even going to get the stuff you need for financial aid. Like that was stuff that I didn't even foresee until I actually got down to Jackson State. So I actually packed my things into my boyfriend at the time, his mom's car. And she's actually the one that brought me down to Jackson State and got me started in Mississippi, pretty much. When it came to financial aid, I had so many issues with financial aid because my guardian was no longer alive. So it wasn't like nobody was responsible for me, but my grandma had already filled out like my financial aid information or whatever. And so with her no longer being alive, it was like a lot of questions up in the air. Like it was really hard to complete registration. I had crazy out of state fees, and Mississippi was my new home. So I wasn't actually able to get in state, even though my grandmother had passed and Mississippi was my new home. I wasn't eligible to get my out of state fees waived until I turned 21. I'm 17 when I get to college, so by the time I'm 21, I done graduated from college. But I really just wanted to like share the first piece of my journey into Mississippi, because it was just like a big transition point in my life, and it's definitely something big to like reflect on and to understand like why I went through some of the things that I went through when I got to Mississippi, all the trauma that I harbored prior to moving here, all the trauma that I brought with me that kind of led into a lot of the issues that I encountered while I was here. So being a 17-year-old girl in Mississippi on her own, and all of the predators out there looking for a girl that's vulnerable, looking for somebody that they can manipulate and take advantage of, were at my front door, pretty much. And so this is just the beginning, and I just wanted to lay a small part of that foundation for you guys before I get into like all of my stories and all of the things that I've been through and all of the things that I've overcome, because it's important to understand like what type of state I was in mentally, physically, financially, emotionally, where I was, and how it led me to where I am today. And today, I'm in a place where I just want to be set free. I want to be set free from those things that continue to hold me back, that continue to place me in a position to have failed relationships and be in situationships, be in financial hardships, to be in situations that I never imagined myself being in. And so I hope that you all enjoy this journey with me. I hope that you all learn something from my own experiences, and I hope that I obtain self healing because I'm able to release and I'm able to share myself with the world in a more positive manner. And I thank y'all for tuning in, and I thank y'all for sitting in and watching on today. See you later.